There are two important facts about life you might not know. One, no mineral is more crucial to longevity than magnesium. Two, the most effective form of magnesium is stabilized magnesium ions. That's where REMAG comes in by Dr. Carolyn Dean. Experience the benefits of stabilized ionic magnesium and support your health today. Visit RNAreset.com and use offer code MIRACLE10 for 10% off your first order. Visit RNAreset.com and use offer code MIRACLE10 for 10% off your first order.
A common sense recap of the day's biggest stories. It's John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby. Katz and Cosby on 77 WABC.
I agree with you on that point, Rita.
Okay, good. I agree with you on that one.
We have Congresswoman Claudia Tenney, and we got problems in Washington on the race. Well, Claudia, you know, you're the expert. What the heck is going on in Washington? I saw the former Speaker
Kevin McCarthy.
Kevin McCarthy.
No, the Democratic Speaker.
Hakeem Jeffries. Yeah,
The minority leader.
Minority leader.
Yeah, and he spoke with a vengeance. And I was very surprised. He's usually a mild-mannered guy. Spoke with a vengeance. I'm not giving Mike Johnson not even one vote.
Yeah, he said he's not going to help. The Democrats will not help Mike Johnson.
So, Claudia Tenney, you're the expert. What the heck is happening?
Well, why should they give the Republicans anything? We need to learn how to stick together and find a way to come together.
Well said.
Wow.
Well
for
said.
their own future, the Democrats would probably be smart to stick, to have some of the moderates, some of the people that are in districts that Harris lost, would probably not be a bad idea for them to come to the middle a little bit and at least to the center left and have a little bit of common sense. But I don't know if that's going to happen. But, one of the things, I'm just going to say this quite honestly because that's the only way I can be. That's the way I was brought up. My dad was a New Jersey guy, so I can say that honestly. But look, there are people that in this political world now who get social media engagement, and they can actually monetize it. And that's what worries me, is they also like to leverage their vote for something, which is human nature and which is part of like this kind of ugly game we play in Washington. But we're in a real critical time now where we have a new incoming president. We have a Senate majority of larger than our House majority, which is 3, and we don't have room for error. And so getting Trump's agenda through is going to require the president to really get in there and start saying, really helping the speaker get things together. Now, the question is, some of them say they won't vote for Speaker Johnson. They don't like the CR and some of the bills that were put through. But, a lot of them don't face reality. And a lot of them, by the way, have never served in the minority in the state legislature like I did as a Republican when it was like 102 to 100, I don't know what were the numbers.
48.
Really short, 148, and then it got down to even lower when I was there. I started out, we had 51 Republicans. I left, I think there were only like 42 or 43. And Governor Patterson was there. He knows how difficult this is, but he also had the luxury of having the Senate as somewhat Republican so that there could be some kind of negotiation. But when you have no room for negotiation, you get people who, want to get what they want. And sometimes you have to look at what's for the greater good of America. And really, we want a conservative agenda, obviously, for President Trump, or an America First agenda, but not, you're not going to get 100% of what you want when you have a one-room margin for error.
You know what's interesting, though, Congresswoman Claudia Tenney, that the Democrats, and you know this, it's like they're sort of all over the place, a lot of them, but they always seem to vote in lockstep. And yeah, it's such a slim majority right now for Republicans in the House. But how can that get together? Because otherwise, then it sort of rests on President Trump to have to come in and step in every time. I mean, why is it that they seem to be able to vote in lockstep, even if they're all over the place? But when it comes to the vote, and yet Republicans seem to have just so many different personalities, and they can't rein them in.
Well, the Democrats recognize the importance of being in power, controlling the House gavels, controlling the floor, and controlling the agenda. A lot of these Republicans aren't concerned about that, and that worries me. And when they haven't been in power a lot, remember famously many, many years ago, there was this guy named Newt Gingrich, and he said, someday I'm going to be the Speaker of the House, and everyone laughed at him because the Democrats had controlled the House of Representatives for over 50 years, and everyone just said that's a foregone conclusion that the Democrats are always going to control the House. And then Newt Gingrich came along and others, and we've been back and forth, based on, midterm elections and things like that. But, Nancy Pelosi, not my favorite person, but she understood how to make sure that people realized it's more important to be in power. And honestly, people would say, well, there were carrots and sticks. Well, there might have been in the state legislature where in Albany, for example, as a state assemblywoman, the majority leader or the minority leader controls, what office you get, how much staff you get, how much money you get for your staff, and all those things they control. But in the House of Representatives, every one of us is treated equally. We all get the same amount. And so there's no leverage by the leadership on that part, but it's the understanding of power. And I think that's one thing people used to say, well, geez, Nancy Pelosi must have put pressure on AOC to get her to calm down. I don't think so. I think AOC recognized power, and that's why it's important, because there really was nothing that Nancy Pelosi could take away from AOC. She had a lot more social media following. She was raising just about as much money as Nancy Pelosi online and all those things. So I think it's a more practical approach. I think the Republicans could learn something from the Democrats on that, quite honestly.
Well, the Democrats love power, and Republicans have they each has. I mean, we all have principles. That's when we vote principles, and that means you're going to get a shattered majority. But an interesting thing, you mentioned Newt Gingrich. And he broke the majority. The Democrats were the majority party until 94, from 1932 to 1994. Since then, as you said, it's gone back and forth. Guess what? For the first time since 1928, people leaving this presidential vote, the voters, 37% were Republicans and 31% were Democrats. The Republicans were more numerous in the voting booth than the Democrats for the first time. Are we on the way to becoming the majority party in the country?
I don't know if that's the case. I mean, the Republicans need to continue to draw more and more people to the fold. I mean, we're getting better, but I think that, President Trump presented sort of an eclectic group of people behind him. I mean, who would ever think in our era, in this era, that we would have the former the son of a former presidential candidate, the nephew of a former president, actually
RFK Jr.
and serving with a Republican. John F. Kennedy, coming up now with all the policies that are coming back. RFK, his son is now working for Trump. Tulsi Gabbard was head of the DCCC when she was in Washington at one point. I mean, who would think that all these people would be coming together and so many Democrats would be looking to the common sense party of the Republicans right now? And look, we're still very, very divided in terms of, different, the size of our tent. You have all the libertarians, the isolationists, all the different groups that all come together that generally are Republicans. And now you have, of course, they have them on the Democrat side too. But I think that right now it's a question of very difficult to get the unity to happen. But it's going to have to happen.
Yeah.
Or we're not going to get any of the agenda through, which is critically important to not just for preservation of the United States, but to keep the U.S. as the world leader, because when the U.S. is weak, the world is in chaos. Absolutely.
And listen, the American public have spoken. They want what President Trump, the agenda. So it's beholden to sort of push that through. So for so many reasons, Judge Weinberg.
Claudia, it's Richard Weinberg. Good to talk to you again. I just want to ask you about this bill that was just signed by Governor Hochul, the so-called Superfund bill, which is a penalty against oil companies of $75 billion.
Say it nice, slowly. $75
billion. Wow.
Which will be reflected to the consumer, I'm sure.
Right. And what does that do for American energy independence and making sure that we have enough air conditioning and enough heat? What's your thoughts, Claudia?
I think this is a disaster. I think it's probably dead in the water. I don't see, number one, how they're going to task the Department of Environmental Conservation to go out and collect this $75 billion. Are they going to sue, and then the oil companies are going to win this in court? And who's going to pay those legal fees in the end? And what's going to happen to all the businesses and the people that are dependent on baseload power in the state of New York with this really just absurd climate or commute, whatever that CLCPA bill is. I wasn't there when it was passed.
Right, but this new one is a Superfund, which is exactly a penalty. It's on top.
Exactly. Well, it could drive. I mean, getting that money out of the oil companies if they leave New York and we no longer have access to natural gas and fossil fuels, let's look at it this way. I think 60 or 70% of the state of New York is dependent on fossil fuels, the entire state. 99% of New York City, the most populous city in New York, is dependent on natural gas, and the only pipeline that gets it up there is to the West Side Highway out of New Jersey. There are no pipelines, and there is no way to other than through trucks to get natural gas, really life-saving, LNG and other things to Long Island, to other parts of the state other than through, these transmission lines. I actually live in the district where all of the nuclear power plants that are operational in the entire state are in my district in New York 24. They're along the shoreline of Lake Ontario. I have Niagara Falls at one end, and what most of the upstate New York relies on this type of energy, which is technically green and obviously emission-free. But we also live in the rural areas. We have farming, and how are we going to survive without natural gas? And these climate leadership goals of that bill, the original Green New Deal, are impossible to meet. And you even had the testimony this week of a former NYSERDA guy that I think was John Howard testified that this was absurd, that we weren't going to do this. You're going to see mass outmigration, catastrophic situation if you have extremely cold weather or something that could happen here, a lot of snowfall where I live. This is going to be a real problem for the state, and Kathy Hochul's going to own this.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Congresswoman, thank you so much for having it. We love having you here, Claudia. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. Happy New Year to all of you.
You too. You too.
Eden Memorial Chapels understands Jewish funerals can take many forms. Some are Orthodox, while others are more conservative or of a Reformed nature. There's no one better. With services close to all New York and New Jersey cemeteries, Eden Memorial Chapels offer fair and balanced pricing and can provide easy transfer of you and your loved ones to Israel. While you're grieving, they're here to take care of all the details so that you deal with less bureaucracy and have more peace of mind. Go to EdenMemorial.com. That's EdenMemorial.com.
Larry Kudlow here with an urgent warning. While we celebrate Trump's historic win, inflation continues to drain your IRA and 401k, and China is now targeting your money with a kill shot on the dollar. That's why thousands of Americans are shielding their savings with gold and contacting the experts at Colonial Metals Group. Gold has protected American wealth through every financial war. For a free 2024 gold guide that explains everything, please go to freegoldguide.com/Kudlow or just call 800-621-3908. The experts at Colonial Metals Group are the only folks I trust to help you bulletproof your wealth with gold. Go to freegoldguide.com/Kudlow or just call 800-621-3908. That's 800-621-3908 for a free 2024 gold guide to learn how you can protect your life's work, and if you qualify for a free home safe and up to $7,500 in free silver right now. freegoldguide.com/Kudlow.